There's a neat summary of the July 2012 Alzheimer's Association International Conference meeting on the blog. The summary includes a look at an open-label extension study of intravenous immunoglobulin therapy for Alzheimer's disease with a pending Phase 3 study, a number of other intervention and prevention studies, which includes a Phase 2b study for a partial alpha-7 nicotinic agonist, a study clarifying the relationship of various patterns of alcohol consumption to subsequent cognitive decline, the beneficial effects of exercise in delaying cognitive decline in one study, including an important role for resistance training, gait associations with cognitive decline, and various widely reported studies that look into the relationship between sleep pattern and cognitive decline. The Alzheimer's Research Forum has an interesting post on how the difficult issues of genetic testing in Alzheimer's disease might be approached. There are a number of genes associated with early and late onset Alzheimer's disease. For one of these genes, ApoE4, the researchers are trying to work out if it is effective to test a person for a variant of this gene and to disclose this information. Both genes and the environment have an effect on the development of Alzheimer's disease. Giving people information about the gene variants when other factors play a more significant role in their risk for Alzheimer's disease may cause distress. This study, the REVEAL-4 study, will help the researchers begin to answer the question of whether assessment and disclosure of this gene information is helpful in specific circumstances. Researchers looked at people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder in one small study. They used an MRI technique to evaluate the synchronization between brain regions. Using an approach known as voxel-mirrored homotopic connectivity, the researchers found that the subject with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder had less synchronicity in activity between several brain regions. These included the declive of the cerebellum and the thalamus. Just to clarify, that's the activity between the thalamus on both sides and between the declive of the cerebellum on both sides. So it's the interhemispheric connectivity. This was a small study, and there are many subtypes of schizophrenia as well as biological associations, which make the theoretical interpretation of these findings complex. New Scientist has an article on Watson, an IBM computer which is being developed as a virtual physician's assistant. Watson is programmed with skills in analysing natural language and uses this in decision making. The science of study is covered at Scientific American by psychologist Professor Willingham. There is a brief mention of different methods for learning new material. Professor Willingham writes that rereading and underlining material are less effective than intermittent quizzing about the material. Turning to issues relating to evolutionary psychiatry, one scientist has recently constructed a computer model, tested it, and published the findings. This model relates to the origin of languages, and he was using data about the geographical ranges of different languages that have been used, as well as a number of other variables. There are two central models for where the Proto-Indo-European languages came from. One states that they came from Central Asia, peoples that used chariots. The other states that the languages were spread from Turkey from an agricultural society, with farmers moving through and expanding their territories. The findings from these simulations suggested an origin in Anatolia, which is also the site of the earliest evidence of agriculture. Gibbons were able to modify their vocal calls when given helium in much the same way as sopranos do in one study, suggesting a very sophisticated mechanism for modifying their vocal production.